And what I will focus now in the next 10 minutes on is work which is taking place now for more than a year, and has to do with the observation we originally made that there are a number of tools out there being used. There's a lot of guts feeling about those tools being used in for measuring carbon. And when we prepared for the commitment of the Glasgow Declaration, we at the same time found it necessary to produce over there an overview of the tools existing and helping to evaluate these tools by their criteria, which I will share later on, by different criteria to provide those in the industry who are making the choice, do I go for this or that tool, a first overview, a solid overview to lower the entry barrier into using measurement for making objective statements for companies and destinations. But at the same time, we aimed at highlighting over here needs for policymakers to foster the development of specific tools over others. So this is information we have shared in a technical webinar at the beginning of the week. And it's a consultation process. So whatever I show over here is on the interim's findings, and at the end we invite you, as well as anybody else you are aware of, to participate in the continuous review. But you will see already a lot of results we have generated. So here, first of all, the timeline, the official analysis started at the beginning of this year in March, when we established the criteria under which we want to review carbon emission tools in the tourism sector. We defined especially at the beginning the sample. And this sample, which you see here, was considered to be comprising the leading entities. We had to limit a global review by this criteria to make over there an assessment of the tools used by these, forming part of either this global survey, which was conducted last year by UNWTO with the help of partners, and we thank them very much. And we had a high number of respondents around the world, the global survey on climate action in tourism. The second thing is that we looked into all of the signatories of the Glasgow Declaration right now, as Virginia presented that yesterday, comprising already more than 700 signatories. We used the Tourism Declare signatories group as well, which is existing longer and is comprising very active partners over there. The tourism companies of the Science Based and Targets Initiative, and lastly, the companies which participated in the WTTC Net Zero Roadmap last year. So from these 5 groups, we looked into the criteria of pertinence, focus, practicality, replicability, and accessibility of their tools and methodologies, and identified the following tools for accommodation: HCMI, and you see over here a list of others, which were the most common tools being used, methodologies and tools used in the accommodation sector. Some of them having fees, as you see that already. I will not go through each and every in detail, but into the takeaways. Glenn, I advanced that to you yesterday already. We found that HCMI is the widely used tool in the accommodation sector, but we also found that many still design their own solutions, that new tools offer simplified approaches, and that is a very important conclusion also for this group over here, that it is not necessarily the complexity, we will see later on some of the questions, but rather the practicality, which is important for those engaging. When it came to tour operators, we found these following tools listed here being widely, or being the most used in tour operators' efforts to measure. And we also came to the interim conclusion that measurement is quite challenging for tour operators. There is no consensus to include international aviation. It's the elephant in the room, where to put aviation or not. But very interesting discussions took place already on Monday. and took place in research we published 3 years ago together with the International Transportation Forum for International Aviation, where we also took into account logics of a hub or where to assign emissions when it comes from a tourism perspective. Yeah, well, and here another point which you see down there, that consultants and climate experts are used very often by larger business to develop their solutions. Then for destinations, first of all, the MST initiative for the national level, if we see an initiative being, or a destination defined as a national destination, but we see other and tools over here being also used, but in general, destinations reported, or what we observed over there, that this is quite a complex challenge, especially related to boundaries and roles. And that in the terms of what was made available for destinations and tools, then they are actually not that well served. In general, although the discussion is a long ongoing, our conclusion was over there, and that it is only starting the measurement of emissions in the sector as a general view. We have exceptions for very specific industries of tourism. That larger companies are actually very strongly involved, but we see over there difficulties, especially for SMEs, with the tools available currently. The roles of boundaries and scopes is very hot. Aviation emissions, as I mentioned before, are making this discussion very often an entry barrier for those wishing to commit, and we see differences between the global north and south in whether focusing on adaptation or decarbonization. We see that still today, measurement is seen very often rather a barrier than an enabler for climate action, because it is considered to be time-consuming, not producing a clear benefit, and complex. And very often that there's a preference to focus on action rather than first on measurement. That is something we also detected through the global survey, which we conducted last year, and found over there that this is discouraging users from engaging. At the same time, new tools are emerging, and that there's a simplification being observed, or a need for simplification, and because of that, a simplification producing that there's a growing trend of approaching methodologies and sharing methodologies. And that here a number of recommendations for the way forward, especially for policymakers, are made. That is something we are taking on board, especially promoting the benefits of measurement, something we know here in the room, all of us, but at the same time, we need to make significantly stronger as an argument for the sustainability of the tourism sector, that measurement is core if we want to advance sustainability into the right direction, and that especially for such an important resource as carbon. That we need to find consensus, build consensus around the scopes and the boundaries. Glenn, you mentioned laundry and the need to update again. There is enormous benefits producing from that, because the industry wants, but at the same time doesn't want to go into a one-way street or dead-end street and invest into that. That we need to build on the advances of larger players for the benefits of SMEs. And with that, concluding here that this report, the draft, is available through these QR codes. And we encourage you to have a look at that, to provide us with feedback. We also link already to the COP27 site event, where we will present the interim results to the global community. And with that, I want to close on an overview of this undertake here for 3 of the very interesting subgroups, industries, and destinations, tour operators, and the accommodation for one of these big themes in tourism in the overview so far created. We thank everybody who has participated so far in this research and having allowed us to produce also on that side the necessary evidence to bring and move the discussion ahead. Thank you very much.